The call for faith in hip-hop, the origin and controversy of Jesus Walks. When Kanye West released Jesus Walks in 2004, it disrupted the status quo of mainstream hip-hop. At a time when the genre was dominated by themes of materialism, violence, and street credibility, Kanye's decision to center a track around faith, prayer, and a direct relationship with Jesus Christ was seen as bold, risky, even radical. In the song, he openly acknowledges how controversial his message is, rapping, "They say you can rap about anything except for Jesus." This line not only challenges the unwritten rules of the music industry but also confronts societal discomfort with overt displays of faith, especially in secular entertainment spaces. The origin of Jesus Walks is deeply rooted in Kanye's personal struggle between his faith and the demands of fame and commercial success. Raised in a Christian household by his mother, Donda West, Kanye always carried a spiritual foundation, but it often clashed with the image he was expected to project as a rising hip-hop artist. Rather than conforming, he chose to expose that internal battle through his art. Musically, the song was innovative. It combined a haunting gospel choir, military-style drums, and raw, confessional lyrics. This blend created a track that felt like both a sermon and a revolution. The production drew from church music, but the energy and rhythm remained true to hip-hop. This duality made Jesus Walks a crossover anthem, reaching audiences beyond traditional rap listeners. The controversy wasn't just lyrical. Radio stations were hesitant to play a track so explicitly religious. Record executives reportedly doubted its potential for commercial success. Yet Kanye pushed forward, producing 3 different music videos for the song, each highlighting different aspects of faith, struggle, and redemption. His commitment paid off. Jesus Walks won a Grammy for Best Rap Song and became one of the most talked-about singles of the decade. Ultimately, Jesus Walks broke barriers. It opened a door for spiritual expression in a genre where such themes were often marginalized. It laid the groundwork for Kanye's later projects like Jesus is King, and inspired a generation of artists to speak more freely about their faith. It was not just a song but a declaration that belief has a place in every corner of the culture, even hip-hop. Kanye's spiritual conflict, exploring Kanye West's inner journey. Kanye West's career has never followed a straight path, and at the heart of his creative evolution lies a persistent and complex spiritual conflict. While Jesus Walks introduced his faith to the world in a bold and defiant way, the song was just the beginning of a much deeper, ongoing journey, one that would be marked by contradiction, searching, and transformation. Kanye has always stood at the crossroads of art, ego, and spirituality. Early in his career, he was known as the outspoken producer-turned-rapper who wasn't afraid to challenge expectations. But beneath the ambition and controversy was a man grappling with meaning, purpose, and identity. His inner tension was evident even in his most boastful moments, a desire for glory intertwined with a plea for grace. The death of his mother, Donda West, in 2007 was a turning point that intensified this internal struggle. Kanye's public behavior began to shift, more erratic, more vulnerable, and more raw. Albums like 808s and Heartbreak and Yeezus revealed a man in turmoil. On Yeezus, he placed himself in a messianic role, provoking both critics and fans, while simultaneously questioning his own worth and direction. The self-deification in songs like I Am a God wasn't a rejection of faith, but rather an expression of his fractured relationship with it. Despite the chaos, Kanye never abandoned the spiritual thread running through his work. It re-emerged stronger than ever with The Life of Pablo, which he called a gospel album with a lot of cursing on it. That tension, between sacred and profane, salvation and sin, is where Kanye's spiritual journey lives. He doesn't present himself as holy or righteous. Instead, he lays bare the contradictions of being human, especially in an industry and society that both idolize and criticize him. The culmination of this journey, at least publicly, came with Jesus is King. In this album, Kanye fully embraced his Christian faith, both musically and personally. He began holding Sunday service gatherings, blending worship with performance art. The man who once declared himself a god now knelt before one. Yet even this transformation was met with skepticism. Was it genuine or just another phase? But Kanye's spiritual conflict isn't about having all the answers. It's about the struggle itself, the back and forth between light and shadow, ego and humility, belief and doubt. his journey is not a straight ascension but a winding path of revelation, failure, and renewal. And through it all, Kanye continues to explore not only who God is, but who he is in relation to him. Gospel Fusion Flip. A breakdown of the Jesus Walks remix production. The Jesus Walks remix, particularly in this edit, is not just a reimagining of a classic. It's a sonic experiment that bridges sacred traditions with contemporary innovation. This Gospel Fusion Flip takes the original framework of Kanye West's groundbreaking track and rebuilds it with modern textures, slowed elements, and gospel-infused energy, transforming it into a dynamic expression of faith through music. The foundation of the remix lies in the iconic choir sample from the original song. That sample, a stirring hymn-like chant, has always evoked the atmosphere of a black church service. In the remix, this element is brought further into focus. The vocals are layered with more reverb and spacing, allowing each word to resonate with spiritual weight. It's no longer just a background texture. It becomes the driving emotional force of the track. The beat itself undergoes a significant transformation. While the original featured Marshall snares and tight percussive loops, the remix opts for a Kanye West slowed songs aesthetic. The tempo is pulled back, giving the track a meditative feel. The drums are thicker, more drawn out, and paired with gospel claps and organ swells that give the song a revival-like presence. These changes slow down the rhythm without dulling its impact. Instead, it heightens the listener's awareness of every lyric and sound. Vocal effects in the remix are handled with subtle distortion and pitch manipulation. Kanye's voice is occasionally dipped into lower registers or echoed for emphasis, lending a more introspective, almost prayerful tone. The use of space and silence also plays a critical role. Moments where the instrumentation drops out entirely allow the message to breathe, to hit the listener directly, almost like a sermon pause before the next powerful line. What truly sets this remix apart, though, is its blending of Jesus music with urban beat-making sensibilities. It respects the original's gospel roots while pushing it into new territory. Influences from the Jesus is King era are clear. Less focus on mainstream appeal, more focus on divine message and worship-driven emotion. There's even a slight nod to Megan Thee Stallion style rhythm switches and layered production styles, merging the sacred and the secular in a controlled, purposeful clash. In the end, this remix is more than just a flip. It's a reinterpretation that honors the source while carving out its own spiritual space. It reaffirms that gospel can live inside hip-hop, not as a gimmick but as a core heartbeat. This is Jesus Walks, slowed, sanctified, and reborn for a new generation. Jesus is King connection, linking Jesus Walks to the Jesus is King album. The connection between Jesus Walks and Jesus is King is more than chronological. It's spiritual, artistic, and deeply personal. These two works bookend a 15-year transformation in Kanye West's relationship with faith, music, and self-expression. While Jesus Walks introduced Kanye's spiritual questions to the world, Jesus is King represents his declaration of belief and submission. Together, they form a narrative arc that tracks one of the most unexpected and compelling faith journeys in modern pop culture. Jesus Walks, released in 2004, was Kanye West's first major statement on faith. It was bold, defiant, and raw. He rapped about the struggles of being a believer in an industry and world that didn't want to hear about Jesus. The track expressed a kind of spiritual rebellion, a desire to be heard despite or perhaps because of the fact that religion was not marketable. At its core, the song was a plea for divine guidance in a world dominated by ego, violence, and materialism. Fast forward to 2019 and Jesus is King, and we hear a very different Kanye. Gone is the tension between the secular and the sacred. Here he has fully stepped into the role of a gospel artist. The album is structured like a praise and worship set, not a traditional rap record. The lyrics focus entirely on themes of salvation, repentance, and reverence. Songs like Selah and God is don't just mention Jesus. They center on glorifying him. Where Jesus Walks asked for permission to talk about Christ, Jesus is King insists upon it unapologetically. Musically, the connection is just as strong. The gospel choir energy that underpins Jesus Walks is expanded throughout Jesus is King, with full choral arrangements, live instrumentation, and samples from gospel records. This isn't a stylistic borrowing, it's a full embrace. Kanye's Sunday service performances, which heavily featured both tracks, blurred the line between concert and church, demonstrating how far he had come from the conflicted artist who once felt the need to justify his faith. But perhaps the most powerful link is thematic. Jesus Walks captures the struggle of a man searching for spiritual direction. Jesus is King captures the same man, older and weathered, having found something solid to stand on. It's the difference between the beginning of a testimony and its first resolution. Not a conclusion but a checkpoint in a larger, ongoing journey. Ultimately, the two songs and the eras they represent tell a unified story. A public wrestling with belief that turns into a public proclamation of it. From Jesus Walks to Jesus is King, Kanye West doesn't just evolve as an artist, he transforms as a man of faith. Cultural remix. Old meets new, influence of modern artists like Megan Thee Stallion. The Jesus Walks remix doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is a product of its time, both a homage to a foundational moment in hip-hop history and a reflection of today's dynamic genre-blending culture. One of the most striking elements of this remix is how it balances the weight of tradition with the bold energy of modern influence. Artists like Megan Thee Stallion represent a generation of performers whose confidence, style and unapologetic presence have redefined mainstream music. Their influence, even on a remix rooted in gospel and faith, can be felt through rhythm, tone and attitude. Megan Thee Stallion is not someone typically associated with gospel music, yet her cultural footprint is impossible to ignore. Her influence shows up not in the lyrical content of the Jesus Walks remix, but in the structure and energy of its production. Modern remixes, especially those influenced by artists like Megan, often rely on hard-hitting beats, strategic rhythm changes, and vocal sampling that cuts through the mix. These techniques are evident in this gospel flip. The remix borrows the punch and pacing of contemporary trap and bounce rhythms, creating a track that resonates with today's listeners while still honoring its spiritual core. Moreover, Megan's presence in the broader music culture contributes to a larger shift, where sacred and secular no longer live in strictly separate spheres. Kanye himself has navigated this tension for years. The remix reflects that blurred boundary. Gospel vocals meet club-level percussion, prayerful lyrics ride on beats built for performance and provocation. This synthesis doesn't dilute the message, it expands its reach. Culturally, the remix becomes a dialogue between generations and genres. The reverence of gospel collides with the bravado of modern rap and hip-hop. Megan Thee Stallion symbolizes a shift in who controls narratives in music, strong, self-possessed voices setting new norms. This influence recontextualizes Jesus Walks for a new audience. It's not just a spiritual cry anymore. It's a statement of power, identity, and creative freedom. The remix also captures a unique cultural moment, where spirituality, celebrity, and artistry intermingle in public, digital spaces. Platforms like TikTok and Instagram have popularized remixes and cleaned edits that preserve message while adapting to modern tastes. In that space, a gospel-infused Kanye track remixed with energy inspired by Megan's era makes sense. It bridges old and new, reverent and raw, creating something timeless yet unmistakably now. Ultimately, this remix isn't about imitation, it's about interpretation. It takes the bones of Jesus Walks and dresses them in the sound and spirit of today's culture, showing that faith can speak many languages, and music is one of its most powerful dialects. The West legacy, Northwest family and Kanye's evolving message. In recent years, Kanye West's narrative has expanded beyond his personal journey of faith and artistry to include a new and deeply influential dimension: family. The presence of his children, particularly his daughter Northwest, has become central to both his public image and the spiritual themes he explores in his music. The Jesus Walks remix, viewed in this broader context, isn't just a reworking of a song. It's part of a larger message Kanye is shaping for the next generation. It's a legacy piece. When Kanye first emerged on the scene, his work was largely centered on individual struggle, fame, ambition, ego, and the search for purpose. But fatherhood changed that. Northwest, born in 2013, symbolized a shift in Kanye's priorities. She wasn't just the daughter of a celebrity. She became a quiet muse for some of his most thoughtful and family-oriented expressions. Whether appearing on stage during Sunday service performances, joining fashion events, or even dabbling in performance art herself, North represents a merging of Kanye's past and future. This legacy is not about superstardom, It's about responsibility. The remix of Jesus Walks, when viewed through this lens, can be seen as a kind of message in a bottle. A spiritual and artistic artifact meant to show his children what he stood for. The gospel elements, the slow pacing, the emphasis on clean edits and redemptive themes. All of it is designed to offer an alternative to the chaos of the mainstream. It's music that reflects the values Kanye now wants to pass on, not just what he used to fight for. The influence of the entire West family, Kim Kardashian, the children, and Kanye's late mother Donda, forms a web of emotional and moral context around his newer work. Donda instilled in him the foundational Christian beliefs that led to Jesus Walks. Kim, with her own global influence, introduced a new level of public scrutiny and image control. His children, especially North, brought a reason for legacy, not just impact. Together they shaped the man behind the music. And while Jesus Walks once asked to be accepted by a world hostile to faith, this remix speaks from a different place. It assumes that faith, family, and future can coexist. It sees Kanye not just as a performer but as a father, a spiritual seeker, and a cultural architect, someone trying to build something lasting. Ultimately, the West's legacy is about evolution. From the ambitious artist of the college dropout to the gospel-centered figure of Jesus is King, Kanye's journey is no longer just his own. It's shared with his children. It's built into his music. And it lives on in every note of this remix, where past struggles become future testimony.